Good evening from Dubai, and good afternoon, Europe, and good morning, US. We have 7 speakers from 3 continents, all in one room. My name is Sharat Agarwal. I'm the CEO of CyberGear and founder of onlywebinars.com. This is the 3rd webinar, which is part of our What's Next series. And today's conversation is going to be about the evolving workplace and how we can empower a hybrid workforce. I think the topic is very relevant for present times. And I want to first introduce our panelists. I'll start with the usual suspects. John Scott, he is coming in from New York. He's a change maker and an expert on leadership. We have Arnaud Collery. He's coming in somewhere from France, I think. He moves like a satellite. He is a human ever and runs a personal growth platform out of France. And then we have Rajiv Daswani from Dubai, good friend, and runs his own happiness coaching center. And we have 3 new panelists for you, Lorraine, Antonio, and George. And I'll allow them to introduce themselves right away. Lorraine, over to you.
Thank you, Sharad. So hi, everyone. I like to describe myself as a catalyst for change. I work with my clients, which are oftentimes multicultural corporations, on collective dynamics. So with leaders and managers in different countries and different languages. I had the pleasure to work with John Scott in the past a lot, and Antonio as well. And so I work a lot on how to remove barriers between decision and action, and to how to empower people in corporations. And I think it's a topic that is even more important now, because I really believe that with the hybrid workforce that we have in corporations now, we can see how people have made more decisions and been adjusting to the situation. So I think there is really something there that we need to focus on and to follow up. Antonio, I'll hand the virtual talking stick to you.
Virtual talking stick. Hello, everybody. I'm Antonio Mesa, originally from Mexico, but working and living in France for the past 17 years. I'm a facilitator of collective intelligence processes and a coach. I'm also a graphic artist and graphic facilitator. I have the pleasure to work in that capacity with John Scott and Lorraine several occasions in different continents. Having always a very good time. And I'm very glad to participate in this very relevant conversation and joining people that I admire and respect a lot. So with that, I pass it to George.
Thank you very much. I have the talking stick. So
Yes.
my name is George Hopkin. I'm in the UK. I'm in Nottingham at the moment, Robin Hood country. I'm a journalist by trade. These days, I operate a content marketing agency called Special Noise. I've been in Dubai 3 times. I've lived in France and in Spain and the United States and in Canada. Back in the UK now. These days, I tend to call myself a digital gadfly sometimes. I try to tell people inconvenient truths about how they need to be talking a great deal more about some of the things that we're going to be talking here. And looking forward to talking about that a great deal today.
Great. Thanks, George. So I think we are good to get started with our conversation. And I think over the past 16 months, everyone on the planet has experienced a new way of working. Those days of 9 to 5, I think, are over. And the new mantra seems to be fail fast, learn, and repeat. Do you agree, John Scott?
I had a feeling you were going to kick it right to me. I think that's certainly one way of going. I think that, having the courage, and this is something I focus on with my clients, is cultivating a courageous leadership style and way of working, where people are looking across options that they may have not considered before. So that's going to take a failure appetite. And I don't use the word failure with clients in nomenclature. It's just, how are you learning? How are you adapting? How are you growing? Because the adapting, leading generative organizations are those that are going to thrive and succeed in the near term and long term. And I'll kick that right over to Loren for your feedback.
Yeah, well, as I said when I took the floor, I think that we have a shift that is accelerating that trend towards allowing for more people to make important decisions. And so I hear a lot about the way teams have been adjusting real fast, sometimes and oftentimes, I would say, faster than their own leaders. And now those leaders are have an opportunity actually to capitalize on what those teams have been able to face and to do. And I think it's really a great time to realize what can be done when we trust the teams and when we rely on the teams more for decisions that are not at their level, but decisions that can be engaging something, their team or even their organization sometimes.
Great.
Rajiv, you want to comment?
You're on mute.
I love it. I was hoping that you tap on me. So Lorraine, love it. I'm gonna just emphasize what you just said and summarize it. I wrote the 4 words down. Adapt. Adapt, rely on your teams. Where we heard that before, right? So as many organizations think about this word relying, well, moving away from from the I must do it to we must do it attitude, trust. The elephant in the room. How can we bring more of this, right? And as we bring realization and being awareness that, the pandemic has taught us so much, we start to now evolve as organizations. I guess if anything has come out from this pandemic is a realization that something has shifted in a good way. We can also look at the shift, right? So lots of juicy meat here to talk about. George, I'm throwing it over to you.
Yeah, right. So I heard 2 words there as well: must and trust. Trust is absolutely essentially all, and we must do this because these trends have been coming for a while. Digital nomads were things that we were talking about a few years ago. WeWork at one point was going to take all of New York, I believe. Okay, that didn't work out too well, but the whole idea about remote working in shared office accommodation was a $1 trillion industry a few years ago. Let's not forget about that. The COVID, all that has done is just focused everyone's attention. It's like the entire population has jumped out of a plane and some people are Googling how to open a ripcord, how to pull a ripcord, how to open a parachute. Some people are saying, how hard is the earth really? No, it's too late. We are committed to this. Economies and workforces around the world want this and they're going to demand this over time. That's my take on things.
Arnaud, do you want to comment?
Sure. Maybe in a way, I'm just saying what everyone else saying in a different way, but I just came an hour ago, come back from a personal storytelling, personal growth retreat in the middle of nowhere, gorgeous, in the Basque country. And there's a bunch of CEOs there. And in the last 2 months, I had so many opportunity to voice my opinion on personal growth in a company all over Europe and France and US that usually doesn't hire someone like me. I work in tip management for now 7 years, but my background is the one of an adventurer, of an artist, of an entertainer. I'm not a consultant by trade. I'm not a PowerPoint dude whatsoever. And all of a sudden, there's a need for people like us who have a different voice. It's really, for me, I would just sum up in one sentence is personal growth is there to stay, and it's a priority for every single CEO in the world and every single employee. I mean, this is the speech which I'm hearing, saying over and over every day, and which is at last understood by everyone for once on the planet. Really, I mean, company that would not hire me pre-COVID, they would feel me, I was just a crazy French guy adventurer. And now they're like, oh, we need people like us. We need to open the chakras. I'm like, did you actually say open chakras?
I know.
Right.
Go
I'm
outside.
ready for this.
I mean, I was an association National Association of CPAs, expert comptable in French. Like, I don't want to be judgmental, but, usually extremely boring people, right? But they're not, of course. And they told me myself, the president, they say, Arnaud, we a little bit boring. It say with his own word, he say, we are psychorigide, which is the worst thing to describe yourself in France, which is the person who just see life in a box. And they say, he worked our whole life. The average is 55 years old. And we understand we can't no more manage our teams. We can't no more manage our clients. We can't no more manage our lives. We need emotion, passion, personal growth. So what I'm saying is personal growth is here to stay forever. And I would just say, hallelujah.
Right. And Antonio,
Thank you.
want to weigh in?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Arnaud, for that. I'm obviously familiar with that expression. Let's open our chakras, and it's interesting to hear it a little bit more now as well. Thank you for saying that personal growth is here to stay. I think that there's no other way to go forward. I was reflecting on this yesterday, and there's this idea of what do we do, that there's a little bit of fear of control, right? There's a lot of managers and a lot of business people a little bit freaking out because if working from home is here to stay, then how am I going to do to control people? How am I going to do to manage them, but manage them in the old sense of speaking, right? And when you think about this, personal growth means that you're taking care of yourself. It means that if you take care of yourself and that if you believe on what you're doing, then together, then that equation gives you more motivation, more productivity, right? So on one side, offering the right space for that personal growth, but on the other side, offering as well the right motivation, which would be in the form of communicating the right vision, the right sense of purpose. Why are we working together in the end? Why is it that we're actually communicating and speaking and working together for what purpose? And when you put those together, and if you have a strong feeling for both of them, then you get up in the morning wanting to do something for contributing, right? And it doesn't matter if it's from your home or in the office. So in a way, this fear of how am I going to control, perhaps I would like to offer the comparison. Sometimes we speak in terms of, in marketing, the people speak about push versus pull. And there's also this idea, right? Am I pushing my people to work, or am I pulling them with the right culture, with the right conditions, and with the right vision to have the right motivation? So I think this idea of push versus pull could be an interesting one to explore.
Yeah, it's a great point, Antonio. I'd like to just say it's interesting, and I'm going to ask. Laura had a comment earlier in the chat about knowing how well do people know their teams, and along the line of the push-pull, it's an important. I just want to mention it. You can't demand compliance from people and call it engagement. Change means choices. And I believe for the better. People are motivated today, to everyone's point, much more so, apparently much more so than simply following orders and money. So, change means choices. And I think leaders and organizations have to adapt quickly on an ongoing basis. So Laura, to your point about leaders knowing their teams, would you like to just build on that for a bit? Unmute. There you go.
I think actually one of the things that I've become very aware of, I'm a Gallup strengths coach and a master of resilience. And I have seen a lot of people who are struggling because they've been stuck, particularly in organizations, they've rather been stuck in performance competencies. And so they ticking boxes, and they're looking like high performers on paper. But of course that, when you're doing that, you're not necessarily leveraging your key skills or your strengths. And so I've seen a lot of people who are becoming a little disengaged or a little stuck or at crossroads, not knowing where to go and how to move forwards, because no one's actually capitalized on actually their individual strengths. So I think this is something that managers need to do, is to actually look at what really energizes people, where they actually perform at their best, not just a tick box of business competencies. That's one thing that I've become very aware of, and I urge people to think about that. The second thing I wanted to mention as well goes back on, I know, Antonio, you were talking about purpose and vision. It is so important for the leaders to give the direction, because, you know, it's all very well saying speed and action, but if people don't know what direction they're heading in, they're not going anywhere fast. And I think a lot of this comes down to really clear communication, especially when you're seeing the hybrid team, some in the office, some out of the office. You know, you don't want two tiers of kind of talent management. So it's really, how well are we leveraging our communication? Are we clear about it? You know, sometimes I'm seeing an overload on every platform of communication. You know, how are we making sure that we've got, you know, something that everyone can clearly conform to and follow through, so that they get the most out of it? So just a couple of things: competencies and clear communication.
I'll weigh in on that. This is a time where the leaders do need to realize that, for good and for bad, the attention is on them. It's not about the millions of workers, I think, finding ways to adapt. They're going to adapt and get no thanks for it whatsoever. The leaders are going to go, okay, this is how we do it based on best practice and research, or they're going to go, I'm going to do it that way because I think it's right, or they're not going to do anything. But for the first time, if they don't do anything, businesses will fail. If they don't take action, business will fail. Livelihoods will end. So I think that the leaders and the middle management and HR people need to realize that this is there's a window of opportunity over the next 18 months where we find out what the new normal is. It's this rubbish phrase that just keeps getting trotted out, but we need to realize how things work at the coalface in the next 18 months. And those leaders that aren't on the ball now and managing it all the way through, they're not going to round in 18 months. And if they're not showing the creativity for leaders and management, they're not going to show the creativity for just adapting to working in a new hybrid way of doing the things. So yeah, I think that there is a great deal of pressure on leaders, and I think they should feel it. I really do.
George, thank you for speaking about creativity, because I also wanted to offer this idea. I think today we can a little bit imagine perhaps certain possibilities, but we're still in a moment where we're still surfing the waves, right? Yeah. It's still changing constantly and very quickly. So this part of creativity and agility is super important for leadership and for everybody.
Absolutely.
So that you can adapt constantly and reinvent yourself. A little bit what Sharad was saying in the beginning, like trying something, learning and repeat again this cycle constantly. And constantly means weekly or 2 or 3 times a week. But that means letting go as well. That means letting go of your plan, of your ideas on how to make a long-term plan and strategy. Yeah, you may have that vision, that purpose, and you may have a certain idea of certain steps, and then the day after you review it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that say?
If I may just come in, Antonio, for a second. You know, in the olden days, leaders would probably work on the basis that do what I say, not what I do. Yeah. I think those times are over. Leaders have to lead by example. They have to walk the talk, and then employees will follow. And teams are not just a group of people working together. They are a group of people who trust each other, right? So leadership has to define the course. Just to say we are in a hybrid world and work environment is not good enough. No. What is the definition? Who is coming to work? Who is working from home? What are their realistic goals? How are they going to be judged if they are working from home? Are they missing out because they are not at work? These are some of the issues that have to be clearly defined by leaders. Almost like the army, you know, when you get marching orders, every cadet is very clear on what he has to do. So leaders need to scope out and define the goals for all team members.
Sharad, that's a terrific analogy. You have an army of workers across the planet. in all the nations, and they're saying, what do we do? And there's a much smaller number of generals that are stroking their chin and hiding behind each other because they don't want to make a decision. But you're absolutely right. It does need to come from the top. Whether it needs to be delivered by the leaders, it needs to be adapted and embraced by the workforce, who will be providing that model themselves anyway by just getting the job done. How many other people just get the job done? You know, there are lots of jobs where you just get the job done. I'm thinking special forces, perhaps, you know, but also journalism. This is why journalism often has phone tapping. Just get the job done. And so this is what the global workforce will do. They will just get the job done. Those leaders that are stroking their chin and saying, what do we do? What do we do? That is not a business model. Finding out what's going to happen next is not a business model. So they have to act quickly in order to concentrate on the business models, which will also be going through all sorts of changes because of blockchain, this, supply chain wobbles, that. So yeah, absolutely.
I want to add
Lauren wanted
something.
to come in. Lauren, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just feel that building on what Antonio was saying and maybe on some of George's comments, I think that the workforce, actually the people working for those leaders that you're talking about, they have plenty of ideas, actually. They're not a silent army of people, expecting orders. I think that's that comparison I would use to describe the companies I work with. I think that they have experience and they have plenty of ideas and they have expectations. So Antonio touched upon the purpose, the meaning, why would we do what we do? And before we get people together, it has become much more complicated. So we do have to ask why and when and for what and for how long and which people do we need to bring together, which is a very good question. I mean, we should have done that, many more times than we have in the past. So now we really have to, because it's getting much more complicated. And also an interesting trend that I've been seeing in the teams is that more than ever, some of the younger people have more experience than the leaders when it comes to technology in particular. And so they are the ones knowing how to deal with all those tools that we've been using because we're far away from one another. And they've been so comfortable connecting with other people that are far away. It doesn't really matter. And look at us today. It doesn't matter where we are. We're just talking today as if we were in the same room. I didn't even mention where I'm calling from. It doesn't matter. And so all those people, young people, have something to bring to the table that they would not have had a few years back, which is, it's fascinating. And I'm just hoping that those leaders will not forget to rely on that experience and that willingness to do things in a new way. They're 100%. Ready to adjust.
Yeah. And by the way, just have a thought right there, but just to clarify, Lauren, you should tell everyone. I mean, you are calling from the spaceship of Richard Branson.
No, he's not my hero. No, not that one. Another one. I'm calling from the world. Isn't that okay?
Talking about great leaders, I think just maybe what's missing is, what's missing is the more role models. I just bought the latest book in France, the best business book I read. It's called Les Grands Faux, for all those ones speaking French. And it's the story of the great French leader. One of it is the richest man in the world now, the owner of LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Bernard Arnault. One of them is Bolloré. All of them have 70,000 employees around the world. And many more guys. 500 pages of interview of the 6 top French leaders. Not one word on compassion, not one word on gratitude, not one word on team building. And this is what the business student of French read. All of them saying, Bolloré is saying now, and I admire him because he did build an amazing group, and I admire Bernard Arnault and all those guys, yet they say all the same thing. We look for prey, we kill it, we get inside, make it better, sell it. All the 500 pages about this. It's fascinating. It's a great business book. It's like a mercenary. It's a pirate book. I loved it. It was a page turner. But this is not the world now. And those guys, of course, don't care because they're so at the very top. They don't need to, it's when you try to convince 55, 60, 65 years old plus, extremely successful people who succeed another way, not asking for purpose and passion to the young people. Why should it be otherwise? Because they killed it, they made it, they went to the top, and they revere around the world. I mean, I love Elon Musk. I read his bio. He's younger than those guys, but apparently when you work for Elon Musk, it's a bit of the same thing. A little bit more passionate guys on technology. But if you don't work 24/7, you're fired from Elon Musk. Same thing as we all know with Jeff Bezos. I'm sure we have all met manager working at Amazon. We know how he treats his people. Yet those guys are the role models. I don't know any. We've read here and there those entrepreneurs and with few thousands of employees, but as long as they made role model, I mean, it's the same thing if we go back to politics. No one wants to be politicians since maybe Obama left, because there's not amazing people to admire, right? Especially in this crazy time. So no one wants to be a politician. And same thing with young, I think young person with passion and purpose, they until those who are really changing paradigm are more known with their own techniques. It's a little bit more difficult for, I guess, us who are helping entrepreneur as coach and consultant in some way to make it known, because you need, as a leader, you need to be revered. You need to fascinate. You need need to be fascinating to other people, and unless those guys, men or women, show the way that vulnerability is the key, that purpose is the key, that listening to young people is the key, it's a bit a harder way for us, I think. I don't know. Up to you, John.
Yeah, we have a question from Abla. Should leaders improve or develop their skills in a hybrid work? Nowadays, we work at home or in the office. Should leaders renew their skills to lead a team by using technology? I think it kind of points to what Loren said in terms of young people. And I just want to point out, I invite anyone else on the call to jump in, make a comment. I'll actually invite JP to share and unmute yourself. You know that you're not going to get on the call, your dad on the call, and not have something.
Hey everyone.
So he won't.
So JP, as one of the young people on the call, how do you feel like you want to be engaged, or how do you find business now? I mean, you're a recent grad. We have all these older people on the call. And I know you're not on camera because you probably are waking up and dealing with your business all over now. So how does it work for you? Is it do you want your leaders to evolve their technology and their leadership styles, or what are you looking for at this point?
I definitely would. Hey everyone, by the way. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. But yeah, I've been working from home now for all of COVID, and I've had several, I could be a big complainer. So I've had several, pieces of feedback from my manager. But simply to answer the question, yeah, I would want my manager and my leaders to renew their skills in their technology. And to the point where you guys were talking about earlier, about maybe like 10 minutes ago, like standardizing the processes and standardizing the expectations for employees, especially like entry-level employees like myself and my teammates, would make our jobs a lot easier, and it would also set us up for success, because the way that I've onboarded into this job, basically what I do is I broker meetings between prospects and the sales reps, and I make my commission off of that. And the processes are not standardized at all. So I've run into a bunch of confusion where, I shouldn't be doing this. My manager says I shouldn't be doing this, but I did that and I saw success doing that. And then they have another kind of way that they want something to be done, but it's actually like a waste of time. And it could be up if their technology and tools were updated, we would avoid a lot of confusion, and it would set us up for more success rather than kind of having an unnecessary step in a process that would set us up for failure, if that makes sense. It's kind of vague, but
I think what you're getting at, and I'll ask the group at large, you know, setting expectations is obviously a critical point, and being clear about it. Do you think that that's not being done? This is a question not just for JP, but for the group at large. Do you think that that's a challenge now because people are sticking with old ways of working, or that they're nervous, to Sharad's point, about failing and failing fast and adapting, or they're just they're trying to, I've liked the nomenclature because it seems to describe a lot. They're trying just to demand compliance and consider that engagement, right? So
yeah.
where do you feel like that or something else fits into this, JP, or the group at large?
Yeah, I guess quickly.
All of us,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, somebody else. No, please.
Go ahead. Your point, and I'll come in right after you.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, you go ahead. I kind of lost my thought.
I'm going to jump in before Rajiv jumps in. Right. I think everyone should be terrified about all of this. And if they're not reading enough. Yeah. I mean, the changes that are coming down the line, if the managers if CFOs think that they can do this through money, they're not reading enough. If HR people think that their world is not going to change totally over the next 18 months and never return to normal, they're not reading enough. If any CEO thinks that life is going to be in any way resembles 5 years previously to 5 years in the future, they're not reading enough. There are so many exponential changes coming down the lines right now that fail fast and change things and go back again. It's Google's line all over again. It's issue early, iterate often. It's the same thing. But Google also started out with do no evil. They dropped that over the years. Yeah. Technology. We were talking about role models. You're right. There are no role models in politics or in technology at the moment. And this is why I'm going to call back right at the beginning, Loren, when we were saying about the armies of people there. If we're talking, these are billions of people at a global scale, and you need 1 in 10 of them to say, well, I'm not having this anymore. I'm going to go and set off on my own. Then you have a massive self-employed workforce. But that's only if they can actually get the business that is existing. They're not creating new business. They'll just be finding the business that's there and just stealing the lunch of those companies that aren't prepared for this. So short-term pessimist, long-term optimist, the people will get what they demand over time. These people that say that the cities will never be gutted and change, give it 200 years and come back. You'll see that city centre is entirely different. These are things that are coming down the line.
I mean, yeah, George's points, and Rajiv, jump in as you wish. I think it's interesting to look at, JP is currently, he's based in Austin, Texas, and he could, as we all could, work literally for anyone, anywhere, at any time. So the decentralization of the workforce that's exploded, like the curve of it was accelerating, but it just shot straight up with COVID. How do you engage these teams in ways that are meaningful and productive for your organization, not just culturally, but bottom line results? Because someone like JP or you or me, we can deliver services anywhere. So from an HR perspective, as you said, or from a CEO perspective, if you're not, even if you're reading, if you're not courageous enough to take a dramatic shift, and you touched on a great word before, George, and I'll shut up after this. Trust. You have to be willing to practice, and forgive the nomenclature, you have to be willing to practice radical trust. You have to say, great, George, and then close your computer and say, this is, and the bottom line is the results will speak for themselves. The challenge now, and I guess I'll put this question to the whole group. How do we as leaders engage our teams productively when they've been largely independent, physically, working where they're working, and those that have lasted, have adapted, and have succeeded? Now, how, as leaders, I have several clients I'm talking to that said, I need everyone back in the office. And I said, how are you going to explain that to your teams? I have a client who said, they can't, previous to COVID, they have a person who wants to work from home 1 day a month. They said they can never do their jobs 1 day a month from home. Guess what? They're doing their jobs every day from home for 18 months. And the C-suite will say they're doing a better job. So how do you take that now and say, well, we have to have everybody back in the office. We have this fixed CapEx that's going to drive our bottom line, ROI, P&L, and we have to be accountable to Wall Street. We have to be accountable to this, to that. So I think that we're measuring success in different ways. You and me, the people on this call, are looking at this in a holistic way. Whereas C-suite people, particularly public companies, are worried about how is this going to affect share price. And I can say this literally.
Yeah.
I'm 50 something years old. I'm looking to cash out in the next 10 years or say, and I want to make sure I make decisions that are going to drive share price because my options are my retirement. I'm not really worried about JP. I'm not worried about the kid there, who's starting out looking for a meaningful purpose. I have to drive share price or I'm going to lose my job. How do we balance all these competing priorities to the group?
Yeah, if I may just comment, there's an interesting article I read yesterday on fastcompany.com, which said this is the time for introverts. The people who love to fly solo, they don't mind working from home at all. They just love it because they're not in the socializing scene and this is their time. So
it's the time for everybody. It's for everybody to absolutely play to their strengths. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Rajiv, you want to comment?
Yeah, I love where this conversation is headed because, going back to JP's point and what John Scott just addressed was, I think the gap is not, organizations need to start to meet people where they are. And the thing is, we spoke about measuring, we don't know all the answers and therefore we need to measure. We need to start to identify. So, Lauren came in and spoke about strengths. Apart from strengths, yes, absolutely. Start to know where you are. Identify your culture, identify where your people are emotionally, touch base with, you want to standardize systems to make things better for people, but understand where they are first. And in change, if when you want to transform organizations, you benchmark where you are and you move yourself forward. And just like everyone here is saying, leaders do have to bring purpose to the table, but guess what? 1 in 2 leaders around the world don't even have their own purpose established, yet they write mission statements, guys. So, if you don't know your own purpose, you're closing your eyes and driving on the road, it's dangerous, right? So just like that, start with your purpose, identify the purpose of people in your organization as well, because guess what? The biggest inspiration you can bring to your people is having them being self-inspired through their own purpose. And if your organization takes them there, guys, half the work is bringing people on the same alignment. It's aligning your organization at this point in time. Now, Antonio, I'll throw it back to you because I know this is something that you're big on. So you can pick up from here.
Thank you, Rajiv. No, thank you. It's super interesting. I have been reading articles about statistics of people leaving their jobs right now in the US, in Europe, and the trend just keeps on going, right? And the past 18 months have been a moment of really touching base with yourself and asking yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right? And if tomorrow I have to get back to commute 2 hours to get to a job that I don't really like, and then commute 2 hours back home to not even really see my family, do I really want to do that again? And a lot of people are saying, no, I don't want to do that again. I'd rather be doing something else. And that's something else everybody is looking for. But then it means that at an individual way, a lot of people are getting to that congruence. And if I don't have my congruence aligned with the reason or the purpose of the group that I belong to, or the company that I belong to, the organization that I belong to work and to contribute, then it's not going to add up. I'm going to try to do something else. I think a lot of people were not giving themselves that opportunity before, and now it's just a trend that is right there, and that just puts the challenge that John Scott was speaking about. How do I bring people back to the office? What are the arguments to ask them to come back to the office? Well, maybe that's not the right question to be asking. Maybe the right question is, what is it that glue us together? What is it that we want to create in the world together? And then we figure out how to do it. And it can be from home or in the office or around the world, well, wherever, whenever, in whichever country. So as long as we're aligned with that with that common purpose and with that common vision. And if I adhere to that, if I subscribe to that, then I guess I can put my energy into it, no matter if it's from home or from somewhere else. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, Sharad just put in the chat, a work-life balance is key. And I always find that term today to be interesting, because for me, and JP can jump in with this, people either think I always work or I never work, depending on when they see me in the day. Either I'm on a call at 1 and 3 and 4 in the morning, or I'm when my kids were little, I was picking them up from school. So it was very confusing. Like, when do you work? And I think that the work-life balance has taken on a totally different meaning for all of us around the world, right? Because for me, I'm looking for freedom. Freedom to contribute as much as I can, freedom to drive changes as powerfully as I can, freedom to go for a run if I want to take off for 2 hours, freedom to go fly to Texas to see my son. So I think that freedom is being decentralized much more than at the executive levels, right? Because no one ever questioned the CFO working from home, CEO working from home. They had freedom to do whatever they felt like. The opportunity now for someone, hold on, this is JP, what did you say?
Oh, you're talking about work-life balance.
Yeah.
And my company calls it their source code, but it's basically their mission statement and whatnot. And they like to put it that there is no such thing as a work-life balance. I was wondering what you guys might think of that.
Well, I think it depends. For you to work productively, and this is true for me, for you, and for all of us on the call live and listening after, what situations are you able to control and put yourself into that is productive and makes you efficient and happy? And to Arnaud's point, the top people, he read a book, no one talked about compassion, no one talked about empathy, no one talked about purpose. I think your generation, JP, is going to drive a massive change. The people of us at the older end of the scale, at least on this call. And as Laura said, work is a part of our life. Like, I love what I do. Like, I'll get zoned in to the point where my girlfriend will be like, what are you working on? And I'm like, oh, she goes, you've been doing it for 3 hours. So I'm like, have I? Like, I just totally zone in. So I love to pursue things that I feel passionate about. And perhaps that luxury, exactly, Loren, the flow, perhaps that luxury is something that more and more people see as a requirement for their job. We're at points in our life where we have the choice to do this. The opportunity to do that at all levels within the organization, and for leaders, to our purpose today, for leaders to harness the power of that collective and individual purpose. We talk about introvert, extrovert. I'm a fairly extroverted person, to put it mildly, but I need my time. Loren's laughing because she knows me really well. And I'm sure JP is cracking up on mute. But the reality is, if I don't have my balance, whatever that means to you or to me, if I'm not leading my teams in a way that's efficient, if I'm not helping my clients in a way that's efficient, that's a moving, evolving, amorphous reality that it takes courage, and it takes the willingness. I'll leave it on this point, to say the 3 most important words for a leader. 3 of them, I won't say the most important, 3 really important, which is, I don't know. So no one, any leader who talks confidently about where they are in the direction of their organization today is absolutely full of it, because there's so many moving parts and moving pieces. To say I don't know and to ask your people and to get that meaningful feedback, that's what a leader of the future is going to be doing if they're successful.
Agreed.
So I'll kick it back to the group for commentary on this. Yeah.
I might add a comment on what you're saying and what others have been saying about leaders. I agree with Arnaud. We when we say leaders, we always talk about the same 10 guys. Okay, I won't mention them. I won't mention their companies, because I guess everyone knows who they are. That being said, as I said earlier, joking with Arnaud, I'm not fascinated at all by those people. I've seen some of them up close, and the way it works when they're around, I would never work in that way with that atmosphere in the company. I don't feel like doing anything for those people. So it's just me, but I'm saying there are plenty of other leaders. Some of them don't make that much noise, but what they do in their
Yes.
company, and they have been doing for sometimes 30 years. You know, we know some of the alternatives to controlling leadership. Some of them have been around for decades, and that's where you get the results. And I'm really hoping that what we're living this year and last year and next year will actually accelerate all that and show that leaders are not the ones saying, as you just said, I have the answer to everything because I'm the boss. I don't think it works that way anymore.
No.
And they would rather say, I might have one answer, but there are others, and I'd be happy to hear what the team has to say. And maybe what the team has to say, it's several people, so it might be much more interesting than what one individual has to say. And I really believe that lots of companies are heading that way. And I'm sure that JEP's generation is actually pushing in that direction. I think it's already happening.
Yeah, raise your hand. So if you have a question or want to jump in, please do so.
I have just a comment, but before to say that, I would like to thank you all of you for this presentation. So concern about what we are talking about leader and I would like to say what I studied in my university, because I studied that a leader is someone who have like a vision, who also have like I say, a vision in a long term. It doesn't also give like a task to the team that they lead, she or he leads. And I also studied that a leader is someone who have like innovative ideas, and they have like a creativity, like skills. And I would like to ask you if is it what I said is correct or not, or is it like in the same context that you all of us said or not?
That sounds like a description of a terrific leader that you've just given there, and I don't think that a lot of leaders that we'd run into on a day-to-day basis would meet up to that. I don't. I think at the moment, if you are not leading, you're not a leader. If you're not saying this is where we're going, you're not a leader anymore. So there needs to be that creativity that you just mentioned. There needs to be that leadership and that together. I think some of the things that we can perhaps zero in on is this word hybrid. Everyone's like saying about hybrid work and this type of thing. At the moment, we're calling hybrid cars because they're trying to wean us off of oil. In 30, 40, 50 years' time, we're just going to call them cars. They're just cars. So today we're calling this hybrid work. Maybe we should call these guys hybrid leaders. Yeah. Until you've actually got back into the leading game, you're just a hybrid leader. You know, we need the real leaders that are going to see us through this period where we're saying hybrid this and hybrid that. And a million leaders means a million different opinions, means a million different I'm rights. So yeah, the guys lower down the chain need to put that pressure up. The guys at the top, the boards, need to say, guys, you're out of your depth in 2021. So there needs to be pressure come from the top and from the bottom. And if you're in the middle thinking, what the hell is going on? Read more. You need to be leading right now. That's what you need. And this fetishization of 10 technology leaders as the be-all and end-all of technology, for example, is rubbish. There are tens of millions. There are hundreds of millions of leaders out there, all making money. I'm not even going to say about the leaders that are in charity and such like, but there are leaders in every single town and city on the planet, and they all need to be finding out what the new way. We need to drop the word hybrid. This is just how it is now. I'm gonna let other people jump in before I.
I just want to come in to say that Antonio has a surprise for all of us, and he's going to reveal it now. Over to you, Antonio.
Thank you, Sharad. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm also a graphic facilitator. So, as we've been having our conversation today, bear with me a second. I've been sketching some of the ideas. I'm going to share that with you in a moment. And maybe you can see it now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just because we're getting close to the hour, and it's not everything, but a few ideas that you can take with you in a visual way. The questions for the leaders, the idea of failing fast, learn and repeat, purpose, push and pull.
I need to open our chakras today. I'm going to open more chakras.
Yes.
Today's mantra.
Is high performance, is it like ticking boxes or not? And nobody said it like this, but I'm capturing it in this way. Radical change is here to stay. I think.
Absolutely.
I think what we call the new normal is that radical change is going to happen all the time. We just need to be like that leader in the softboard over there, willing to say, I don't know, but hey guys, let's figure it out together.
Love it.
Thanks, Antonio. And I can say firsthand, as Loren can as well, Antonio's done this masterfully in 4 or 5 continents that we've worked together on. And it's an incredibly useful tool to be able to be as skilled a consultant and coach as he is, and also be able to work this side of his brain as mystical to me and to many of us on the call. So thanks so much for sharing that side of your gifts. Yeah, thanks, Antonio. So it's interesting because Laura brought up a good point too, and I know we're getting close to wrapping up. Let me make sure I'm paraphrasing you correctly. You can't learn leadership from a textbook. Leadership is the ability to influence others as a result of understanding people. And I think back to, and this will be my final point, Simon Sinek, when he rewrote the book on infinite leadership, talks about how we have areas of the companies that someone's title will explain what they're responsible for. Chief financial officer, responsible for finance and the money. Chief marketing officer, blah, blah, blah. It describes their function. So when we talk about a CEO, what does executiving mean? The suggestion is that we have leaders as vision, should be a chief vision officer, and leaders shouldn't be managers in terms of the tasks. So how do we, if I drop that little bomb and go, how do we on the call feel about this? How do we feel about leadership in this hybrid world? As George said, it's just the world. The quicker we evolve to that nomenclature, the better for all of us. Otherwise, people are going to qualify success based on, well, this is hybrid success, and we're going to go back to normal. And I leaned into a conversation literally on a video last year, and I said, it's over. It's never going back. Before.
You'd need another planet to call this as you would, because this is normal. Normal against what? This other planet that we've got? Well, no, it's just life. It's just life. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I do believe that perhaps it is a nomenclature thing. Perhaps it is a labels thing. Perhaps hybrid is going to just take all of our bandwidth of thought for so long until we realize that, we just get so bogged down with these words. Let's just get the work done. So yeah. Anybody else?
I just want to add, building on what you just said, John Scott. I think that less than ever, there is no answer for everyone. And so I think that it's really high time for companies that have not started yet to focus on their culture, which goes back to listening to their people and how they, their strengths, their skills, what they've learned, and how they adjusted to the pandemic and to the work from home or work from any place situation. And I think that each company will have to focus on who are we? Going back to the why are we? But I think that's, I would believe that all the answers are actually inside the company. No one else can tell them how to talk to their people. You mentioned earlier communications, how to tell them when and for how long they have to go back to the office or not. The procedures, the processes, when we work away from the office. I think that all of that is actually going back to the culture, the very identity of the companies, which is a challenge because there is no recipe. Otherwise, we would be out of a job. So I think it's going to be fascinating actually to really find the right answer for every corporation.
And you're point. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Just very quickly, we have just about 4 minutes before we wrap up. So what I suggest is I'm just going to put a question up there and give you guys maybe 1 minute each to to just summarize what you think will be takeaways from today's webinar. My question is very simple. What do organizations need to do today to be future ready? We can go in any order. John Scott.
They need to look at the behavioral benchmarks of their people, like what drives behavior and organizationally, and what the motivational metrics are, because those vectors have changed so dramatically that in order to be future ready, you have to understand where people are going to be from a behavioral perspective, how they're going to be changing and adapting ideally, and then where does the motivation meet that behavior, because those two are going to change, as you know, like my loop goes into this. So I think that leadership is going to look at behavior and motivation critically in order to take action that's going to be generative. So I'll kick it over to Rajiv.
You know, I second that. I think now it's the time for conscious leadership. This is what I'm saying. We need aware and awake leaders who operate from the heart, you know, who listen. We need to measure, you know, everyone has voiced and echoed that today. You need to measure, see where you're at, measure your culture. It's not enough having 5 words on the wall, guys. It's measure. How are we showing up? You know, measure emotion. What's our emotional quotient in organizations? You know, we need to, Arnaud, you said it, man, compassion, empathy. You know, it's not just words. We need to bring it to the table. Leadership is about role modeling. And guess what? We are human. We need to role model that. So conscious leadership is my vote, is where we need to take this.
Arnaud?
I guess I'll go. I mean, all of you know how much I am already into conscious leadership, and I just wanted to add more. Maybe something else for me would be just, what if you were to start anything with you know, from a blank page, right? With an open mind, or as we see in Buddhist term, you know, with a beginner's mind. Really start from the start, which is really scary with leaders. But all that work I've done with those guys, look at it. What if you were to start from scratch? I just want to read it, a few lines. Someone sent me that on WhatsApp in French, but I'll translate in English. Apparently, it comes from the chief of Indian Hopi, White Eagle. And he apparently said that a few days ago. And he said that moment that humanity is living can be either considered, and I love it, either as a whole, H-O-L-E, or as a door. The decision to fall in the hole and just see negativity and not trust anyone around, your employee, your family, everyone around it, is up to you, or to decide to open a door, to decide to look at life as with a new way, and to start really take care of you. What is it that you really want, and what is it that people really need, really want? So take care of your house, spiritual house. We could say any kind of entity. Take care of your house, take care of your body, take care of everyone else.
Great, thank you. Antonio?
Thank you, Arnaud. How to be future ready. I really like this idea of thinking the best way to adapt to the future is to create it, to create the future. So, and in order to do that, I take what Lorraine was saying, let's get back to the who are we, and then the second step to the why are we together. So what is the kind of world that we want to see in the future, and how do we want to contribute to create it? And then with that, I think everything else is adaptability in terms of human relationships, in terms of technology, in terms of management. You figure that out, but first things first. Who are we, and what is the kind of world that we want to create, and what do we do to contribute to create it? Thank you. I pass it to George.
Yeah, Lauren and George.
And Lauren.
Lauren.
Okay, yeah, my first instinct was to answer companies will be ready for the future when they are themselves. And I think that it does imply not only to allow for more people to make important decisions, but in some places, I would say to admit that more people make important decisions in companies.
Great. George.
I was trying to think of the most applied way to do this. Every CEO on this call should go away now and arrange the great corporate reality check of 2021. If they call that meeting, they're in charge. If you're not a CEO, go and tell your CEO that he's going to organize the great reality check conference of 2021. and he's on the back foot then, or she's on the back foot then. But a reality check event of some description with the endorsement of everybody would be absolutely the way forward, I think, at the moment. Allow us to stroke our chins and navel glaze and find the right way forward, save the planet, stop global warming. This is the time. There's opportunities within all of these problems.
Great call for action, George. So it's time for me now to say thank you to each one of our panelists, to the audience for investing your 60 minutes with us. And I promise to come back to all of you in September, and maybe we walk the talk and actually do a hybrid event with in-person, right? So let's plan that sometime in September.
Or let's just call it an event, not a hybrid event. It's an
Let's call it
event.
an event.
We'll be the
All right.
first.
Agreed. So thank you all, and stay tuned to onlywebinars.com for our future announcements. And we hope to see you soon on the other side. And
Thanks,
stay
everybody.
safe, everybody. Thank you
Absolutely.
once again.